Hey, and welcome back to the channel. Hope you're doing well. I am stoked because we are finally going to talk about Dark Knights of Steel. I have wanted to talk about this series for months now, but ended up working 6 days a week there for a stretch and had to prioritize a few things. I didn't want to start another series with so many irons in the fire. But with Marvel Press Pull finally out and Civil War back on track, I can't contain myself. And this gives us a great opportunity to dive more into DC. I was looking for something like a crisis event that, much akin to Marvel's Civil War, includes nearly every DC character across the board. You know, like one of those big milestone crossovers. But they are massively complicated. You think Civil War has a lot of tie-ins and side books? A DC crisis event is bonkers. So I said I wouldn't go down that road until I've wrapped up Civil War. But this series here is set in an alternate universe setting, and DC uses the term Elseworlds for stories that take place outside of the main DC canon. So this is an Elseworlds series that takes a wide variety of DC characters and slightly reinvents them, giving us a chance to talk about a lot of key DC players. Not to mention the medieval high fantasy setting that calls to the dungeon master in me to explore the what-if world of DC in D&D. And Dark Knights of Steel is a 12-part limited series that goes well beyond the concepts of Justice League and Camelot. So let's dive in, let's crack the spine of Dark Knights of Steel, Issue 1. This book caught me off guard. Nearly every page, or at least every page turn, just had me. I mean, it reached out and pulled me in deeper and deeper. We start off, as we often do, with the destruction of Krypton, and a single pod narrowly escaping the explosion. A scene that any Superman fan would recognize. The origin of Superman, especially the destruction of Krypton, is as well known as the origins of Batman. So when the pod crashes to Earth and opens to reveal Jor-El and a still pregnant Lara, my attention was grabbed. They are quickly surrounded by a cavalry. The horsemen take aim at the cosmic refugees, and with Lara screaming out in pain, Jor-El pleads with the horsemen, but seemingly out of fear and confusion, they take aim and fire. Jor-El has risked everything fleeing to Earth. They are the sole survivors of their planet. He cannot allow his wife and child to be harmed. And in a flash of burning bright red anguish, he blasts them away. And in that same moment, Kal-El is born. So already I am hooked. A surviving Jor-El and Lara on Earth. A version of Clark that never had to be, well, Clark. Raised as Kal-El from birth by Kryptonian parents? I want to see that. Also, take note of the castle in the background. Now, this entire time, there's been some monologuing. A prophecy is being recorded by a seer in a neighboring kingdom, the Kingdom of Storms. Now, in a small shack, a poor blonde peasant boy is laying on his back in the middle of a prophetic dream when the king himself enters. It's Jefferson Pierce? Black Lightning? Yes, King Pierce? I'm in. Now, I like Black Lightning, so don't get me wrong when I simply have to point out that he first appeared in 1977. That is 2 years after the success of our man Bill Foster, Black Goliath, and Luke Cage. But let's get back to it. King Pierce addresses the boy, calling him Constantine and asking what he sees, who simply replies, "Our end." John motherfucking Constantine, the Hellblazer himself, delivering a doomsday prophecy not even 8 pages into the story. Let's go. This series is too much fun. I'm sorry. We pick up 19 years later at what is now known as the Castle of El. I say it like that because this is the same castle as before, but with some noticeable additions. A now grown but wide-eyed and optimistic-looking Kal-El approaches the captain of his family's royal guard, Bruce Wayne, and asks if he can join them on their latest endeavor. But Bruce says no, reminding Kal of the vow that he made to protect him, and taking him into danger is counterintuitive. Kal-El is bummed. He's upset that Bruce and Alfred rely on children but think him incapable. Al reminds him he is practically a god. It is not to exclude him, it is just for the safety of the kingdom as a whole. I'll talk more about the relationship dynamic between these two friends as we go, but I liked what we got from this first interaction. Later that night, Bruce meets with his squires, the Robins. And I freaking love this. Looking at this through a D&D filter, the Robins are a network of rogues, bards, and street kids, scouts and informants. It's so good. It works so well. And each of their personalities come through perfectly. They're responsible too. Richard and Duke wait for Bruce and Alfred at the gate. Meanwhile, Jason is dragging somebody that he knocked unconscious out of the inn, and Stephanie gives a full logistics report. Pretty par for the course, honestly, but I cannot help but notice the absence of Tim Drake. But we'll keep reading, I'm sure he'll turn up. But the reason that they are there, they have tracked a banshee to the inn. It is revealed that magic and the use of magic and other sorcery has been banned in the L Kingdom. Now, we know the role Batman plays within the traditional DC universe, so we're trying to get a sense of who Bruce is or how he's seen by others in this one. We take notice that the Banshee refers to him as the bastard Bat Prince, and he asks her if magic is outlawed, then why is she knowingly in the land? And if she is an assassin sent by King Jefferson. Interesting. We will get back to why he thinks that could be the case, but she denies this, saying no matter how much harm the Elves wish on her, she means the Royals none. We learn that this is Dinah Laurel Lance, aka the Black Canary, and she ain't coming quietly. She lets out a shriek and demolishes half of the inn. A shriek so loud and destructful that it should have ripped Bruce to shreds. Neither of them know how he survived, so she lets out a second scream, hoping that it would finish him off. But within an instant, Kal-El swoops in and covers her mouth, giving the Bat Prince a chance to knock her out. And Kal feels this use of force was unnecessary. But look at him, he's barely able to stand. He shouldn't be alive. So as I've mentioned previously, with each passing page, you get pulled further and further into the lore and retelling, and how perfectly this works in a high fantasy setting. No example is more suitable for this than that of Harley Quinn the Harlequin. Of course she's the court jester, but I feel like she'll play a much larger role than that. Having returned with a subdued Banshee in tow, Bruce and Kal stand before the king and queen. And I have to say again, it is so refreshing to see a surviving Jor-El. Bruce is the chivalrous knight, gallant before his king and queen, taking full responsibility for Kal-El's involvement with the Banshee. He even bows before them. Now, I wouldn't go as far as to say that Kal is playing the role of a spoiled prince, as much as he is speaking to his parents as parents and not as monarchs. I don't think that he's trying to be disrespectful. And in fact, he's pleading for fairer treatment for magical folk. He doesn't understand why Jor-El deems it necessary to lock others away to ensure their own safety. After all, they're practically gods. But again, Bruce vows to protect them with his life. And Queen Lara gets up from her throne, comes down, and lifts Bruce to his feet. I absolutely love this. She tells him that this is his house as much as theirs, and he does not kneel in it. And we learn something very interesting here, that Thomas and Martha Wayne were king and queen before the Elves, that this is quite literally his kingdom, his people, and his traditions. Also, the kingdom seeing him as a bastard is brought up again. Now, no matter how devout he is to his oath, no matter how devoted he is to the Elves, he cannot help but lash out at Kal, who sees their earthly traditions as backwards and idiotic. And then Jor-El raises his hand. Ah, my king. He asks Bruce to take a walk with him. And somewhere atop the castle, overlooking the kingdom, they have a talk. Bruce seems nervous about the storm. He nearly seems afraid of the lightning, and they speak as if they have a history with lightning. Jor-El's taken notice of Bruce's demeanor as of late and asks what else is bothering him. And the Bat Prince tells his king how he had survived the Banshee's scream, how he survived other attacks over the years, like that of the Green Man, attacks that he shouldn't have survived. And Bruce's conclusion is that he is cursed. A cursed Black Knight, space gods as kings, doomsday prophecies? Oh, don't worry, I haven't forgotten about the prophecy. We'll talk more about it soon. But this story is off to an incredible start. But Jor-El tells him, no, No, you are not cursed. All of the misplaced shame, the burden that he carries within their society as being a bastard, being born outside of the confines of not just a marriage, but a royal courtship at that. It's not his fault, and it doesn't make him cursed. The extraordinary abilities that he possesses come from his real father. From Jor-El? What? And Jor-El tells him that that's why he so firmly believes it's Bruce who should take the throne, because 2 kings have called him son. What? Okay, look, it's not the whole Martha Jor-El affair that I'm freaking out on. I'm sure that'll be explained. But the implications that we have a world where these 2 are actual brothers, not working partners, not best friends, not even sworn brothers, but blood brothers. The same Kryptonian blood runs through the veins of each of them. And this brings a totally new spin to the Batman versus Superman dynamic and adds this familial component, one that's clearly always been there, but never so direct. I mean, brothers fight. Oh, they fight. This is going to rise to a boiling point. And when it does, we finally have a Bruce that is capable of standing his ground against Superman. We cut over to Hob Forest to meet another familiar face, that of Oliver, the Green Arrow. But he's not the Green Man that was mentioned previously, though that Green Man is present, as we see when a white-gloved hand uses a green ring to charge Oliver's arrow and imbue it with some strange power. So the Green Lantern then? Okay. And he tells Ollie that the ring spoke to him and that this is how the world is saved. The archer fires his shot, and it whisks out across the land, and true to Ollie's reputation, the arrow makes its mark into the eye and skull of King Jor-El? No! It's what I get. It's what I get for enjoying it way too much. And that's the first issue of Dark Knights of Steel, an Elseworld fantasy retelling of the DC universe. Leave a comment below and let me know what you think of this series, and make sure that you're subscribed if you want to catch more of it in the future. Until next time, take care.